Okay. Hello, everyone. We are the Institute for Leadership in Action. My name is Catherine Conway. I'm a third year nursing major, English minor. Today, we're going to do our college during COVID-19 panel. Yeah, let's get started. So this panel is just going to be about some of the student experiences from what they kind of went throughout the remote learning from COVID-19. And we'll talk to students from a bunch of different majors and kind of see how they felt throughout this remote learning during the pandemic. Like I said, my name's Catherine Conway. I'm a nursing major, English minor, and one word that I would use to describe the remote learning in last spring would be stressful. And up next, we have Natan. Is he still
He is
muted?
still here.
Oh, he's still here.
Sorry about that. I wasn't sure in what order we were going. So my name is Nitan Chanis. I am a senior here at Rutgers-Camden. I major in economics, urban studies, and psychology. That picture is way too formal, but we're going to go with it. And one word that I'd use to describe online learning is unique.
All right, up next, we'll take it to Karina.
Hi, I'm Karina. I'm a nursing major and a Spanish minor, and my word is strenuous, for sure.
All right, Amanda.
Hi, my name's Amanda. I'm a super senior, double majoring in political science and urban sustainability and agriculture. And one word I would describe this online learning during COVID-19 would be chaotic.
Alrighty, so the first question that we're going to talk about throughout this panel is describe your initial thoughts about going remote, like what your thoughts were when we got that email from Rutgers saying that we were going to go remote for 2 weeks, and how you plan to go remote for those first 2 weeks. Whoever wants to start can just, start.
So I can go. For me, the first when we initially received that email, I really thought that we would be back in person eventually. I was definitely a hopeful optimist. That has changed since, unfortunately. But nonetheless, I did prepare to the best of my ability in terms of the online learning. So I've taken some online courses before, so I knew what to expect in terms of that, but I just didn't know exactly what my time commitment would be like. And so I just, planned that out a bit better. I kind of looked at my calendar, wrote everything down, and so that helped me become a step more organized. And then aside from that, I just spoke with different friends of mine to see what they were doing and kind of learning from their experiences.
I would say that initially I was relieved only because my mom was a trauma OR nurse at CHOP for 30 years. So she's worked in many epidemics and pandemics before. So from a safety standpoint, I did feel a lot safer staying at home. Like Natan, I actually transferred from Camden County, or not like Natan, I don't believe you transferred from there, but I've done online college before. I did all online classes before coming to Rutgers. So this is something I'm rather familiar with, but I definitely was pretty disappointed just because I love the Rutgers-Camden community. I was just starting to become a part of that. So it was bittersweet. Just from a safety standpoint, again, it was relieving, but the fact that we're still in it this semester is very disheartening. I'm sure it is for many people.
Alrighty, and Karina?
For me, it was more like Rutgers never shuts down. Like, we would never shut down for a snow day, like for anything. And then it was like, wow, I get this email. It's like super long. I'm like, oh my God, like what's happening? Like, we like learn about like what a pandemic is. And like I saw the explained video on Netflix. But like other than that, I was like, I never would have imagined that this would happen in our lifetime, And like the transition was like very like, oh my God, like out of nowhere, But I think what hit me the most was like going from like always being around people to like being in my room. Like it was very hard. And then like school, it's just like we were like loaded with homework. It's like we already had a lot of work to do, and then it's like even more. But yeah, I guess like the transition and the workload kind of changed. But yeah, that's it.
All right, so for a second question for you guys, how did your plan change once you found out that the remainder of the semester would be totally remote? So after those 2 weeks went by, did your plan change when it was, week 3, or were you kind of already on the grind and keeping with it?
Well, I can say I was I had just received access to the greenhouse on top of the science building. I was trying to start seeds for community gardens because we're also trying to start a community garden behind the Office of Civic Engagement. So my plans for the semester shifted greatly, and I wound up starting all the seeds in my garage, which all wound up in my personal garden. But I would say I was still pretty optimistic that we would be able to return back to normal, just because I was carrying on like we would be back, towards the late spring, and we'd be able to do all these gardening tactics that I thought we were going to do. But I would say probably into that 3 to 4 weeks period, I had found my rhythm pretty quickly and realized we'd be doing this for maybe a little bit longer than Rutgers had anticipated in that very lengthy email they sent us. But yeah, it didn't take long to get a rhythm down. I think it did take a long time to learn how to maintain it and not kind of like fall behind on it, if that makes sense.
For me, it was more like kind of branching off of what you said, like, our projects, our personal projects that we had. Sorry. Yeah, like I was like starting to like organize like the nursing veteran 5K, and I was like, oh boy, another setback. But I mean, it happens, so we'll see what we can do from there. And like getting organized, definitely, like just like putting like an alarm clock on like for every class, so like I wouldn't be like falling behind and like homework hours and stuff like that.
I had a slightly different experience from Korean, and my classes actually became easier. Only one of them got harder, but the rest became easier. And so kind of used that time to then do more work, which was not smart on my end. I definitely piled on a little too much. But for me, the biggest thing after those 2 weeks, and that was when I did shift to being a bit more pessimistic about us returning. But the biggest thing for me was just learning how to not stay in the house all day, and how to actually take my mind off of the news, how to go outside, exercise, and sort of the whole mental health piece of things that's so important that I was neglecting in those first 2 weeks. And so that's the way that my plans changed the most was around that, but everything else stayed the same.
Definitely. I feel like everybody was in the same boat too. Like we kind of went into it thinking it was just going to be those 2 weeks. And then we got an email saying till like the end of March. And then, we just kind of had to power through with whatever was coming. Alrighty. So up next. Due to the fact that this semester will be almost completely remote, and then we have a few hybrid classes as well, has your plan to be successful for this semester, fall 2020, has that changed?
Not for me. So all of my classes are online. So that's just a continuation of the spring. Again, that same attitude of taking on more work has translated into this semester as well, which is my bad on my end. But I don't think that my plans changed terribly. I think that I've gotten into a rhythm that I like. And again, the important thing for me is keeping in mind of finding time to work out, finding time to go outside, and not staying home. And that's something that I have to continue to work on, but that's not necessarily a new plan as much as just strengthening the old plan.
I would agree with Natan. All my classes are also online, so my academic approach to things hasn't shifted that much, but I also now work from home. So I do tend to spend a lot of time staring at my computer all day in my room by myself. So prioritizing going for a walk or a drive or just going outside and interacting with my family is a huge thing that I've had to learn to reprioritize. I'm also a serial extrovert, so it's very difficult for me to be so alone in work and school. I kind of miss that community feel. So I'm learning how to readapt to not having that social aspect. So I would say that's probably what's shifted the most, but believe it or not, the academic portion of it has stayed the most consistent during all of this. It's everything outside of it that has been difficult to adapt to, but I am very grateful that I'm working him in school. It's very difficult to change what the status quo once was.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say what's kind of changed for me was I got a job like right in the beginning of school, so I'm like trying to balance that and like school, but like other than that, it's really the same like what I've been doing. I think the only change I've really like honestly done was like go like on Google Calendar and like put every single homework assignment, class, and everything. So that's basically it.
Yeah, definitely. Staying organized, staying on top of things, it's so important. And everybody's, course load is different, but finding what works for you is definitely necessary, especially being remote. And finally, if you guys were to give advice to someone regarding remote learning, what would that advice be?
I would say, like stay centered, call someone at least like once a day, talk to your like family members if you can, like Natan is like working out, like definitely try to stay motivated, I saw on the billboard the other day, like, did you gain your quarantine 15? I was like, what? Like, yes, but like, you don't have to tell me. But yeah, definitely try to exercise. Try not to eat so unhealthy because I don't know, I struggled with that honestly. And take care of your mental health, please. Like, your mental health comes first, second is school. Because without mental health, you can't go to school. And then, yeah, try to like stay with your friends, like Zoom meetings, like, family meetings through Zoom also work. So, yeah.
I can't say that any more succinctly than Karina just mentioned. I would just say to the very beginning point that she had mentioned, which is find a time to meet with someone virtually, right? Just because it's on Zoom doesn't mean that you don't do it at all, right? So people are saying, ugh, Zoom is not the same. I wish it was in person, so I just can't hang out with such and such because it's online and it's just not the same. Like, no, you're right, it's not the same. It's not as good, but it's something. And you can actually get meaningful interactions just like we're doing now when you are virtual. And so there are ways to interact with people and talk with them, and that does keep you sane. So I'm right there with Karina on kind of like the important tips, and I would really encourage interacting with others.
I agree, and based on that as well, have faith that your professors are very kind, understanding people that are also going through the same thing that we as students are. So I think communicating and making a connection with your professor still is incredibly important, especially if, work has changed or your home life is different, since, we can't go different places to do homework if your internet connection isn't great. Communicating with other classmates and your professor can really be very helpful in this. And also just prioritizing some kind of support for your own mental health, whether that be yoga or doing breathing exercises, cooking something fun. It doesn't have to be good for you all the time, but something that makes you happy. And just go outside while the weather is nice and beautiful. It's very recharging just to go for a walk and not stare at a screen all day. But just try to hang in there and connect with the Rutgers community, like what we're doing here. And don't be shy just to go on a Zoom call that's on Engage, because you're going to meet really fun people that way. Make a Snapchat group chat with your classes too. That a few kids have done that in my math class and my judicial process course, and it's been so helpful. It's kind of like hanging out in class right before the professor walks in, but then that's something that I feel like we miss here on Zoom. So just try to connect with people. It'll really get you through this time.
Most definitely. And it looks like we have a few questions in the chat. One question: what do you wish Rutgers faculty and staff knew about your experiences with online learning during COVID-19? If anybody has, a specific example or like a time when you were just like, oh man, I really wish that, this professor kind of had a better idea.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, go ahead, Amanda.
Oh no, you go ahead. You go right ahead.
Okay, I feel like we could go back and forth and do that, but I will go ahead.
Too polite.
You're more than I am, but anyway, I just think that for me personally, so some professors, especially in the spring, they're a bit better about it now because they've had more time to prepare. But in the spring and a little bit now, again, once they got to be online, a lot of professors just gave up, didn't give it their all like they typically would. And that's really a shame, in my opinion, because you don't get as much learning out of it. And again, Zoom is not the same as person. In person is obviously better, but there are ways, in Zoom, whether it be through polls that you can put on Zoom, whether it be, through breakout rooms, annotations. There's all sorts of functionality on Zoom to actually make it really interactive and make the classmates more engaged in the coursework and paying closer attention. And so I just wish that those professors took that just little bit extra time to find out all the functionality on Zoom, because I think that they would have been surprised at how much they can do to make the class engaging. And again, it's not all the professors. There are a lot that have done an excellent job, and I know that even the ones that haven't been to that standard are working towards it. But I just wish personally that some of them had given a bit more and didn't just give up once things were online.
I agree. And I think also just to understand that we're all doing our best in this. There are a lot of people who don't have great technological or internet access. They're at home with their kids who are trying to do online school like we are, or they're working from home, or all of the above. And so that we're doing our absolute best to keep up with what we have without the resources of being in person on campus. I've had a few professors kind of say like, oh, well, you're just at home all day, so there's no excuse not to get this done quicker, or there's no reasons to show up late to Zoom, or things like that. I think being a little bit, so in some ways, not all professors, but a bit more compassionate for other people's situations in this. It's a global pandemic that affects people very differently depending on different things in our lives. So just to know that we absolutely care and are just as excited to be a part of college as we would be if we were in person, but there's a lot more obstacles that get in the way these days. So just to know we're all on the same team. I think that's what I would want them to know.
Most definitely. Okay, there's another question in here. What is the most valuable thing that you've learned throughout the experience with remote learning?
That we can pull through and that will be okay. That's for me personally. I mean, I know that we're all still working for it, and there's certainly a lot of challenges, but I know that I've made through it. I know that every student here, and we have a staff member here as well, we've all pulled through it. We're all going through it at the same time, and so it's challenging, but just knowing that we'll be okay. And this is just talking about the sort of educative side of things. I'm not talking about the whole public health, and all the lives that are lost through this, but just talking about the logistics of education and learning online, pulling through and knowing that we'll all be okay is something so valuable.
Mine is not as positive as Nitan's, but I was gonna say just how powerful separation of life and school can be is something that is a huge takeaway for me, is that I tend to, since I either sit on my bed because you can't see, but my desk is really low and I'm almost 6 feet tall, so I don't really fit at this desk very well. I do all of my work in school in my bed, and to the amount of procrastination, how good I am at pushing things off is something I've certainly learned about myself. And that the physical differentiation between being on campus, being home, and being at a place of work is very powerful. And it's something that I've learned to, even in a silly way, just rotate physically where I am in my home, just to kind of create some kind of just walking, it's not my normal commute to campus, but it's something. But just honestly how powerful that is. And one, not to take advantage of it when hopefully we can go, or take advantage of it but not take it for granted, hopefully when we can go back to normal. But just that how adaptable we are, but also how similar we are in that I think that's a shared experience a lot of us have had.
Most definitely. I feel like a lot of us, especially in this group here, we definitely miss that on-campus face-to-face interaction. But while we don't have that, we make the best of it with with Zoom and other platforms like we have here. And it looks like there's one more question I see in here. What advice would you have for first-year students who are just beginning their time at Rutgers during the pandemic?
I would say like try to join as many Zoom meetings as you can. Like just dip in any circle you want that you're interested in. Like don't be afraid, don't be scared. Like I'm sure everyone is as scared as you are, even like as a regular freshman and like being in the school setting, you know, it's still nerve-wracking, but just like dip your toes in and just be friendly and, you know, see what you like and what you don't like.
I would also say rely on the staff members, faculty and staff on campus because they're here to support you. It's evidenced for me personally, and I'm sure everyone else here can attest to that, just how helpful everyone is. But they're here to support you, and that was true before the pandemic and is true during the pandemic. So just rely on that one or two staff member to kind of guide you through things. They can, you know, share all the resources that you need to know and can help you through this very difficult time.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Great. Thank you guys all so much. So also in the presentation, I included a few of the resources that are available on campus and now remotely to just kind of take advantage of, especially while we're remote still. Be sure to take advantage of advising. Make an appointment with your advisor, because I remember the first time I had to register for classes, I was definitely a little confused. But it's definitely, the advisors are there. They're there to support you. They're there to tell you what, you know, what you can take and how to kind of navigate your schedule. So definitely they're a good resource to have. Also the Learning Center, I just started there as a tutor. Rutgers-Camden has free tutoring. It's definitely a good idea, especially with these remote classes. It can make it more difficult in some cases, so definitely take advantage of the remote tutoring as well. The Paul Robeson Library, they are still open. They have a grab and go book. You can go and like grab a book in person, and then their online resources are very great too. That you can go to the Paul Robeson website, and they have so many resources online there as well. And finally, the Wellness Center, they have both in-person and online resources there too. And everybody's just kind of in the same boat. Everybody at Rutgers, they're here to help you, and we'll make it through this together. And I believe that was it. If there's any questions, you guys can reach out to us through Engage, or I believe we'll be able to post all of our emails along with this video. If you guys have any specific questions, don't hesitate to reach out, and best of luck with the semester.